Champion of what?
Oh, champion of what?
I can drop a world lead, I don't even like running. You gotta run fast just to go and get some money. I'm Noah Lyles K, you know how I'm coming. I ain't going to no Olympics, I ain't running, I ain't jumping. I can make 100,000 at the crib being funny.
This is Florence Griffith Joyner, the most controversial track and field trailblazer of all time. Florence was the 7th of 11 children born in 1959. She grew up in a small ghetto of Los Angeles called Watts, in a public housing project. From a young kid, she was always super athletic. Her siblings gave her the nickname Lightning, due to how speedy she would move around the house and in the front yard as a child. She used to go outside and chase jackrabbits, and that's when her family realized she was truly gifted. She began track in elementary school and won her first ever national titles at 15 and 16 years old. Showing an early interest in fashion, Griffith persuaded the members of her track team to wear tights with their uniforms. By the time she graduated high school, she had already set all the sprint records at her high school, including the long jump record. Her athletic talents landed her a spot in the NCAA for track and field. She chose CSUN, California State University, Northridge, to train under legendary coach Bobby Kersee. This team included Alice Brown, Pam Marshall, and Jeanette Bowden. This team was so talented, they won the national title her freshman year. And unfortunately, despite having a super spectacular freshman season, her family back home was in the projects and they were struggling to make ends meet. So she dropped out of college to support her family, taking a job as a bank teller. After that season in 1980, Coach Bobby Kersee accepted the coaching job at UCLA. Kersee found financial aid for FloJo and she returned to college. In 1982, she became the national champion in the 200-meter dash. And then the next year, in 1983, which is her senior year, she became the NCAA champion in the 400-meter dash. After her final season in college, she wanted to return back to the bank and work as a bank teller. But Coach Bobby Kersee convinced her to take on a professional track and field career. In that first year out, in 1984, she won silver at the Olympics. Florence wasn't a person who was super passionate about track and field anymore. But everything she did, she gave her all. And that was the reason behind her success. After 1984, she spent less time running. She wanted to pursue her actual passions in life. She returned working at the bank, and she was styling hair and nails on her spare time. Despite being immensely talented, she was out of track for the next 3 years. She simply wasn't passionate about it. During that time in 1987, she married the 1984 Olympic triple jump gold medalist, Al Joyner, who was the brother-in-law of her long-term coach, Bobby Kersee. She made her return to the track a few months before the 1987 World Championships, where she later finished second place again in the 200, which was her strongest event, where she ended up running 21:96. But the next year, leading up to the 1988 Olympics, she trained with Bobby 2 days a week, and she trained under her new coaching husband 3 days a week. She continued to improve, running 10:99 and 10:89 in the 100 before the Olympic trials. And at the Olympic trials, she exploded and recorded a new American record in the 200 meters with 21:77. That 100 improvement was the largest since electronic timing began, though it was expected to be wind-aided by a significant tailwind, which was later confirmed. Despite this, the IAAF have not taken away the record, listing it as probably strongly winded assisted. The fastest verified time without wind assistance remains by FloJo, 10:61 from that final, which was later beat 35 years later by Elaine Thompson of Jamaica. But since the 10:49 still stands, that's still the world record. But during that Olympic trials, 3 USA athletes, Carl Lewis, Joe DeLoach, and Floyd Head, all teammates of the Santa Monica Track Club, all failed drug tests for the same banned stimulant. The USOC first disqualified all 3 of them, later reversed it and allowed them to compete at the Olympics. Joyner was also tested at the trials after her record-breaking runs, and all negative. She had passed all of her tests with flying colors. During the 1988 Olympics, she was singled out for extra drug testing, and all of her tests came back clean. But others in that game, such as Ben Johnson, failed. It was later revealed that 6 of the 8 men in the men's 100-meter final had failed drug tests. So this put a bad stigma on everyone competing, even the people who never failed drug tests. Right before those games, she had left her coach Bobby Kersee for more personalized coaching and better sponsorship opportunities. Kersee, who was both her coach and manager, required all of his athletes to use his management services. So to sign with a personal manager, Gordon Baskin, FloJo needed a new coach. So she switched from UCLA to UC Irvine, where her husband became her full-time coach. And during those Olympics, she went on to win the triple sprint crown, the 100, the 200, the 4x1. And since she was the NCAA champion in the 400, she also participated in the 4x4, where she finished second. So she came home with 3 gold medals and 1 silver. She had accomplished everything at the top of the sport. Going into the next year, 1989, in February, she had announced her retirement from track and field. She had accomplished everything at the highest level, and she could now focus on what she was truly passionate about: philanthropy and fashion. In weeks following the Olympics, she earned millions of dollars in endorsement deals. She designed the basketball uniforms for the Indiana Pacers NBA team, and she even signed a multi-million-dollar deal with the company that created a doll in her image and likeness that was very commercialized and promoted to the masses of people all around the world, that sold like crazy and generated millions in revenue. In 1993, she joined President Ronald Reagan in the White House as she served as the co-chair of the President's Council of Physical Fitness, and she served this between 1993 and 1998. In 1996, she announced on Charlie Roll's show that she was returning to competitive athletics, focusing on the 400 meters. Having already set the world records in the 100 and the 200, she aimed to set the world record in the 400. Despite steady training, tendinitis in her right leg killed her dreams in achieving a third world record, so she could not compete in the 1996 Olympics. And 2 years later, on September 1st, 1998, Griffith Joyner died in her sleep, in bed next to her 7-year-old daughter, Mary Joyner, and her husband, Al Joyner.
Obviously, rumors come up, but we'll talk about it. They may not be justified.
Absolutely. So the coroner made 2 significant findings in the official autopsy report. First, Griffith Joyner suffered from a congenital brain abnormality known as cavernous angioma, which is a condition where the capillaries in your brain are too tightly packed and blood essentially accumulates in your brain. The condition is somewhat rare. It's found in just 0.25% of the population, but has been detected more in recent years with advances in CAT scan technology. The vast majority of people with the condition live without any problems. Only around 10 to 15% of people with it suffer from seizures. It's important to note that the abnormality has never been linked to steroids or other drugs. This is a congenital abnormality, which means it's basically a birth defect.
Something you're born with, right?
Something you are born with.
Not related to steroids.
That's right. A family attorney noted that Griffith Joyner had suffered a, quote, tonic-clonic seizure back in 1990. This is the technical term for what is called a grand mal seizure, which is commonly associated with epilepsy. And she'd actually been treated for seizures back in 1993-94. She'd also been briefly hospitalized after suffering a seizure in 1996 during a flight from Los Angeles to St. Louis, but her brother at the time said this was the result of some stress. So she did have a history of seizures. She was known to have a condition that caused seizures, and really what happened that night when she fell asleep and never woke up was really a tragic accident. According to Dr. Richard Fukumoto, the condition may have led to a violent seizure striking Griffith Joyner while she slept, causing her limbs to tense and possibly leading her to wrench her head to the side as she was lying on her stomach. This involuntary movement of her head ended up with her smothering herself in her own pillow. The term used in the medical literature is called positional asphyxia, and it essentially means that the pillows and the blankets blocked her access to oxygen and she was not able to remove herself from suffocating to death.
Second, the coroner also revealed the results of the tox report, which showed only 2 drugs in Griffith Joyner's system at the time of her death: acetaminophen, Tylenol, and Benadryl, an antihistamine sometimes used for allergies or as a mild sedative. Al Joyner, who'd fought against steroid allegations for many years on his wife's behalf, took some solace in the results and hoped they would quell the steroid rumors once and for all.
My wife now has finally took the ultimate drug test. Let her rest in peace.
The president of the International Amateur Athletic Federation, Primo Nobiello, echoed the sentiment, saying, quote, "This report ensures that Florence Griffith Joyner will be able to rest in peace. Her family have had to endure irresponsible media reports that have sought to tarnish her reputation without any real proof. These campaigns of misinformation serve not only to damage individual athletes and our sport as a whole, but also have a negative impact on the multi-million-dollar anti-doping campaign to which the IAAF has been committed for many years."
All in all, Florence Griffith Joyner was a trailblazer. Her celebrity transcended the sport of track and field like we have never seen. She put others before she put herself, and that's what she did her whole life. She gave up on track many a times because she wanted to help her family out financially. She was a loving and dedicated family woman who maintained strong relationships and friendships despite growing into a super huge icon. She was stylish, overly humble, God-fearing, and an honest and graceful woman. Her name and legacy stretches far beyond track and field. She was a global icon. She touched the hearts and minds of millions globally. She was the queen of sprinting. She was the Florence Griffith Joyner.